What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we've seen many different games leak out early through the ratings boards, and recently one popped up for the Switch that is very intriguing, not necessarily because it's a particularly good game, but because it would be classified under that category of impossible ports, but we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Xbox, as it appears they will have a sizable presence at Tokyo Game Show with a bunch of announcements for Game Pass, and we'll also be talking about Nintendo apparently filing a patent that could work to fix one of the biggest issues for the Switch right now. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Roblox. It's something I don't necessarily understand, but it's also something I chalk up to me just being maybe too old for it, or just not really understanding it with the kids today, right? But I do understand that Roblox is incredibly popular. In fact, they themselves said at their recent event that they have people online that average 2.8 hours per day playing Roblox across all the concurrent players and everything. So when you hear that, you start to wonder, why isn't this on something like PlayStation? I feel like Sony would have gone out and tried to make that happen because it's been on Xbox for a little while now. Well, it looks like that's now been solved because you can see this post up over on their blog for Roblox, where they say, at long last, we announced that next month, millions of PlayStation console owners will be able to access the full catalog of Roblox experiences. Getting our developers' experience onto these two amazing platforms, they also talked about Meta Quest, is a significant step toward making Roblox available on all of the most popular devices, and we're not stopping there. I can only assume that it will eventually find its way to Nintendo system, whether it's the Switch now or whatever their next generation device is. Again, don't really get Roblox, but hey, if you've been waiting for it to show up on PlayStation, looks like you're not going to have to wait too much longer. Also, with Starfield now out, and appears that many people are at least trying it with over 6 million players as of last week, announced by Microsoft and Bethesda, it looks like they're gearing up for mod support to enter the scene next year. This was shared by Todd Howard in an interview with Famitsu that was machine translated. We can see this posted up over on PC Games, where they say, when the mods are ready, you will be able to do almost anything as we have done in the past, and the mods will be supported next year. But we will do it in a big way because we love it too. Also, Todd Howard mentioned about downloadable content next year. It seems like internally they have a pretty big roadmap in place going forward to continue supporting Starfield, as I figure it's going to kind of be like their next Skyrim, in the sense that we'll probably be talking about it getting ported to many future generations of consoles, and they'll do special editions, and it's going to be something that's going to be around for a long time. But them having mod support in that way, where apparently you'll be able to make your own quest lines and full planets, that could get pretty exciting pretty quickly. Oh, and speaking of special editions, it appears that Sony is getting one together, which makes sense, but we'll take a look here. This is posted up over on the Singapore website for ratings and all of this, and Horizon Forbidden West Complete Edition. People were kind of laughing at it a bit because obviously we heard that Horizon Zero Dawn is going to get a remake on the PS5, and it's kind of like, why? This, though, makes sense. They did it for Horizon Zero Dawn, where they included the downloadable content in a complete edition. It would be weird if they didn't do a complete edition with Horizon Forbidden West, considering they have the Burning Shores DLC, which is very good. And also, that would technically just be one PS5 release, since that DLC is not also on the PlayStation 4. So again, this makes complete sense. I know it was kind of getting laughed at a bit. It probably will get announced randomly at like a State of Play, or I guess it could be viewed as something that just gets put out there on a PlayStation blog post randomly throughout a week at some point. So I guess keep an eye out for that, or if you're someone who has not picked up the downloadable content, but you've been thinking about it, hey, I guess a complete edition will be coming at some point, so we can see maybe what else is included. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a game that appears to have leaked a bit early for the Switch through the ESRB, which we can just see the page here. And yeah, you're looking at the ratings page for Gotham Knights. But if we look at the platforms, Windows PC, PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, Xbox Series, this randomly popped up over the weekend and had people scratching their heads a bit. Although I will say, Doctre had a video kind of looking at some different job postings and stuff. We have a LinkedIn, and this is kind of a conclusion that he came to, that Gotham Knights could actually get moved to the Switch in some capacity. We're still trying to figure out exactly what this is going to be, because Gotham Knights was canceled technically on the PS4 and the Xbox One. And this was back in October 2022, just kind of ahead of its release, right? Where it appeared that they had removed those platform titles from a recent gameplay demo at the time, and they came out, WB Montreal, and said to provide players with the best possible gameplay experience. The game will release on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, S, and PC, and will not be available for PlayStation 4 or Xbox One consoles. And when the game came out, it made a bit more sense what they were saying, because it doesn't run very well on the Xbox Series or the PlayStation 5. They locked it at 30 frames, which is already kind of annoying because we had been used to a lot of games having performance mode on those platforms that would give us 60 frames at the cost, of course, of just visual quality, but it was worth the trade-off, even maybe a dynamic resolution that dipped back down to 1080p. Still, though, it looked much better in motion. But they capped it at 30, like ray tracing and stuff on, which is fine, but I'd say, visually speaking, the game looks good, but it kind of comparable actually at times to Arkham Knight, which is a game from 2015. However, in this case, them moving it to the Switch sounds weird because it couldn't go to the PS4 or the Xbox One, or they didn't want to spend time developing for those platforms. I guess just because, you know, they're technically last generation, whereas the Switch technically still this generation, and maybe it goes to the Switch. Doesn't necessarily run that well, but for them, it might be a way to just sell more copies, recoup costs around a game that I just don't think did very well for them overall. And I mean, the game itself isn't very good. I gave it a try a couple of times. Initially, I played it for like 3 or 4 hours, and I was like, this just isn't great. Put it down for a week or two, went back to it, another hour, said, it's still not great. So I've kind of moved on from Gotham Knights. But I will admit, I'm very curious as to how this game is going to look and run on the Switch. If nothing else, we should get some pretty interesting analysis videos from Digital Foundry. And because many people are expecting a direct-to-air at some point this week, this could be in there. Like, we could be seeing it a bit early here through the ESRB, although we've seen mistakes happen at times too. But then later on, it ended up being correct. So just keep in mind, because we're in this kind of direct season period, you're also going to see a lot of those weird lists pop up, like this one that just kind of showed up on Twitter, and people were, yes, having a laugh at it at least, but I'm sure there's somebody out there reading through it and going, wow, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is finally getting announced for spring 2024. I assume that the idea is that that's like a remake or something. These cards don't exist, by the way, within these companies, where it just has Nintendo Direct at the top and then just a list of different games. I'll tell you now, even the PR stuff they send out doesn't look like this. So just, again, you're going to see these fake leaks kind of pass around, and you'll probably see some people making fun of them, which is fine because, you know, it can be in good fun, but don't take any of them seriously. It's just keep an eye out for Nintendo to make that announcement, I think sometime this week, and we'll kind of get an idea as to how long the Direct is, and hopefully see some good announcements there. Maybe later on this week, we'll see. Next up, let's talk about a patent from Nintendo that's been making the rounds, as it appears to show them trying to fix Joy-Con drift. And there's still a lot of conversation around, is this for the current Switch or is this for next generation? Well, the thing with patents, and it's important to understand, when they go public at this time, ahead of maybe the release of the next system, it's not necessarily a patent that they're going to use like specific down to the T, right? They can still change some stuff here and there, but this might be something that is just kind of an idea that doesn't come to fruition as it's described. But still, gives us an idea as to maybe how Nintendo is operating here going into next generation, because we can see this patent, and it is named Information Processing System Controller, Information Processing Method, and Computer-Readable, Non-Transitory Storage Medium having stored therein Information Processing Program. Pretty obvious, right? This is, again, it's a very literal sense of them describing how they would basically use magnets in order to track stick position of your joystick, which we've seen for a long time now as a Hall effect sensor. And this has been used in recent controllers by third-party companies. And it also goes back to, yes, there was a controller with the Sega Saturn, but it wasn't necessarily packaged in from day one with the Saturn. Where Sega made the move to do it just across the board was with the Dreamcast. I did a video actually tearing down a Dreamcast controller to showcase it a bit better. And yeah, it's technology now that it appears companies are starting to tap again. And maybe this is Nintendo having that response to what's been going on this entire generation with Joy-Con drift. People, of course, can just kind of send their Joy-Cons in. It is region specific, so you gotta check. But for the most part, you can get a replacement from Nintendo free of charge or somewhat free of charge. And that is costing Nintendo, I'm sure, quite a bit of money behind the scenes. And in their mind, well, if we can kind of avoid that into the next generation, like it's too late to kind of fix it now necessarily on a wide scale because they sell all their Switch systems with those Joy-Cons that clearly have some issues when it comes to drifting. But if out of the gate they can figure out how they can do something like Hall Effect inside of their Joy-Cons, and I would hope inside of their new Pro controller, then maybe it can work to save them money basically down the road, and also save many customers a ton of headache, because it's been frustrating, obviously, to get a pair of $80 Joy-Cons, and a month or two later, you start experiencing stick drift. That's not a fun thing to go through, so here's hoping that this is an idea that Nintendo is continuing to pursue internally, because the fact that we're looking at the patent now means that this exact method of essentially getting to that Hall effect or using magnets to track the sticks isn't how they're going to do it. But maybe they have other plans and they just haven't necessarily divulged them publicly through patents. So we'll keep an eye out, especially going into next year for 2024, when we assume that we'll see Nintendo's new system, new Pro controller, and hopefully we hear maybe from the press as they ask questions that they've worked to eliminate Joy-Con drift or just drift in general using Hall effect sensors. Next up, let's talk about Xbox and Tokyo Game Show, as it appears that Microsoft will have a digital showcase there, much like they did last year, and maybe this will just become a trend going forward, as Phil Spencer has said that he wants to have more of a focus, especially throughout this generation, in Japan with the market there, as well as some of the different publishers and developers, which you see him making deals with Sega and Atlus and Square Enix most recently on stage for Final Fantasy XIV. So it does seem that they are making an attempt at Microsoft for the Japanese market. And them being at Tokyo Game Show with a full showcase is just another push in that direction, which we can see this posted up over on news.xbox.com, where they say the Xbox digital broadcast will be returning to Tokyo Game Show on September 21st, 6 a.m. Japan Standard Time, or 2 a.m. Pacific, so what's that, 11 o'clock at night for me? And that's the big thing for Tokyo Game Show. A lot of it happens overnight for me, or just in the US and stuff, but we can obviously check it out the next day and talk about what happened there. But they also do go into some details as to what we can expect. They say you can expect to hear progress updates from Xbox and Bethesda Softworks, and see a creatively diverse collection of games from creators predominantly located in Japan and across Asia. We'll also share exciting new games coming to Xbox Game Pass, which continues to grow with great content from teams all around Asia. So I am genuinely curious as to what Xbox will show off here at Tokyo Game Show, especially as they become more and more serious about partnering with different publishers and developers from Japan. I mean, they could do all kinds of stuff, as we've seen, especially with Sega and Atlus, working with them quite a bit when it comes to getting Persona into Game Pass. I mean, that was a big deal, remember, when that was announced? Otherwise, Persona had just always been a PlayStation game, like the mainline ones, right? And we do see them working more and more with Capcom recently, so I'm wondering if one big thing they could do, there has been talks that Shin Megami Tensei 5 is going to go multi-platform at some point, like PC, I believe, and PlayStation. We've seen those, I think, in the NVIDIA leak list. So obviously they're testing it on other platforms. Is this where Microsoft could show up and say, hey, Shin Megami Tensei 5, that's just going into Game Pass, like now? That would be a really cool shadow drop. Otherwise, it's just interesting to see who's going to show up with some games to put into Game Pass and, yeah, get a nice check from Microsoft. But definitely keep an eye out for Tokyo Game Show next week. It's already been mentioned this is going to be the biggest Tokyo Game Show ever, so I'm expecting some pretty good announcements. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Elder Scrolls 6, which was announced 5 years ago. It is hard to believe that it's been that long, 2018, since it was announced. I guess just because of its positioning and it being next to Starfield after what happened with Fallout 76, they at least wanted to tell fans or let them know We are working on the next big Elder Scrolls game, guys. Don't worry, because it's pretty clear we were nowhere near it coming out, as it looks like it has at least moved into early development. This was shared by Pete Hines, which we can see this posted up over on IGN, this transcribed from Vandal, with Pete Hines discussing this with Starfield, of course, coming up, saying, and yes, there are people working on Elder Scrolls 6, but this is what the studio has focused on. So no, you're not going to hear soon about Elder Scrolls 6. Starfield is our focus for now, and it's going to remain our priority for a while before we talk about anything else. Now, it was asked if it's still in pre-production. Hines said, no, it's in development, but it's in early development. So then fast forward 1 week where Bloomberg was talking with Phil Spencer and Todd Howard. Of course, Elder Scrolls 6 came up, as well as the idea of it being an Xbox exclusive. So for Game Pass, PC, Xbox, Phil Spencer responded saying, we look at it on a case-by-case basis with the games that we build. We want to make sure our games are available in so many different places on our Xbox consoles, on PC, also via cloud. These games can come to almost any web-enabled device. We're looking at millions and millions of players who will have access to Starfield and other Xbox Game Studios games. It's really about giving players choice around how they want to play, and they build their library of games. So basically, Phil Spencer really didn't say much of anything, and why would he commit fully to it being an Xbox or PC exclusive right now with stuff that's going on, obviously, with the CMA as they're trying to close up that Activision Blizzard deal? But you could just be vague until the game comes out 5 years from now when you have to deal with it. I mean, we're still trying to figure out if it's coming out this generation. It took them 5 years, apparently, to get into just like pre or early development at this point, right? So why deal with it now when it's probably not coming out till 2020 or 2029? And then the question will be, is this just going to be on the Xbox Series X, or is it going to be on like the next system too, right? So it's going to be a while for Elder Scrolls 6. You got the PR speak from Phil Spencer, because why wouldn't he do that? There's no point in saying, no, it's only Xbox, even though we all kind of figure, yeah, 5 years from now, it probably will be. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, will Metroid Prime 4 appear in the next Nintendo Direct? Wow, 77% say no, 23% say yes. People losing hope right now. I will admit, though, I don't really know why. Let's just say there's a Direct this week. I don't know why Nintendo would show it this week. If it's not coming out until potentially second half of next year, you have another Direct coming up. We all assume we have one in September. There'll probably be one in February, maybe March at the latest, and that'll close up the fiscal year. Then we start talking about the next system to open the following fiscal year in April or May, maybe. So it's just, there's no point in talking about it right this second. And yeah, they can push it off to next year. So I'm kind of in the no category right now myself. It'd be nice to be surprised, but otherwise, I'm still looking towards 2024 because I think Metroid Prime 4 would be a really good cross-gen title. Let Retro Studios stretch their legs a bit and take advantage of the next generation system from Nintendo that apparently is using DLSS and ray tracing. Can you imagine that with the talent that Retro Studios has after doing Metroid Prime Remastered, but being able to use that technology for Metroid Prime 4? I think that would be worth the wait then. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Mark, who says, need to remember the new chip from NVIDIA is totally customized. So I think people will be shocked with the power it has and the efficiency it has being ARM-based again, with DLSS hardware baked in. So this is an interesting one, because you're talking about it being ARM-based, and we know that tends to be obviously more power efficient than what we see from x86 chips and what AMD's been producing, which AMD's been doing a pretty good job. The ROG Ally plays Starfield shockingly well, I will give it that. But with NVIDIA really getting after it here with this chip as opposed to just handing Nintendo an X1, I am very curious as to what they come up with, customizing a Tegra chip to fit the needs of what Nintendo would like to have and also be more consumer facing. The X1 being created in 2015, they didn't make it thinking they were going to sell 100 million chips just in a hybrid system from Nintendo, and now it's like 130, 140 million is up there. In this case, I assume they go into it thinking they could do that again, so they make a chip that could be very impressive, and on the other side, AMD, you would hope, would counter it. So it has that nice competition going back and forth, which should hopefully give us more innovation on the side of these low-powered chips that are already, again, becoming very impressive. So certainly some exciting stuff here. Just really looking forward to see what NVIDIA and Nintendo have up their sleeves. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below, but everything we talked about here today was the potential for a Nintendo Direct this week that could even reveal Gotham Knights. How do you think that game is going to look on the Switch? And then also, what about Nintendo's patent maybe moving to Hall effect sensors for their next generation device? And then Microsoft at Tokyo Game Show. What do you think they're going to show off there? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.